Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. This is a regularly scheduled Committee of the Whole meeting. We have a quorum present with one councilor absent. I'll call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, December 20th, 2022, and the time is 9 a.m. We have two appearances today, and then the regular Committee of the Whole with Finance, Building and Grounds, and other items of concern. So, we have with us in appearances, and we're going to turn this part of our meeting over to our city administrator for the agenda, Britt C. Bennett. Britt?
Thank you. First item on the agenda is an appearance by Landon Richardson and Alex Parrots of MnDOT regarding the intersection alternatives at Highway 53 at 9th Street North and Highway 53 at 18th Street North.
Good morning, Mr. Richardson. Mr. Parrott?
Good morning. Yeah, just wanted to get in front of you all today. Thanks for getting me on the agenda to introduce a intersection evaluations that we're performing on Highway 53 at 9th Street North / County Road 102 and the 53 and 18th Street up by the golf course. MnDOT is planning on a project for 2024, and as part of that, the intersection of 9th Street, the signal is at the end of its life. So part of that, we are evaluating if we can introduce other control methods, if there's safety issues, and we've hired a consultant to evaluate that intersection. And since we're in the area, we were also looking at the 18th Street, which is more preemptive, looking at intersections that historically or statistically could be problematic. I believe Britt may have provided you with several layouts that we are looking at. For the 53 and 9th Street, we're looking at three different options. One would be keeping a signal there and potentially removing the free rights that are at three of the corners. Looking at the option of a roundabout, as well as a continuous green T, which would allow the southbound 53 more or less continual movement unless the Mesabi Trail crossing has pedestrians there, and then signalization for southbound going on to 9th Street, as well as 9th Street taking a left onto 53 southbound. As part of that intersection as well, we're also working with the county to determine if they are keeping the County Road 102 leg on there. They've been working with the city of Eveleth as well as the railroad to determine if that's an option. So we've been evaluating kind of both options there. At the north intersection of 18th Street, we're also looking at no change, a possible right in, right out, and closing that median, or an R-cut option. Our next steps would be going to the public, providing the public with our options that we're looking at, looking for feedback from the public, and then the consultant would develop a matrix based on safety, delays, costs, and recommend the best alternatives for each location.
Okay, thank you. As part of this intersection, if I may, of 18th Street and Highway 53, part of that reconstruction, there's a stacking issue with respect to the cars that are stacked from 18th Street. So part of that is, we've addressed it before with an effort to maybe when you're going to do this project, take a look at those big hump, there's one particular big hump in there that's creating some very traffic issues and some damage to some vehicles as we move forward. So part of that intersection construction would include, you know, the approach to that as well. Is that correct?
We haven't gotten fully into design of the entire project, but it would likely go into that intersection a little bit and include that hump.
Thank you very much. And I know we took a look at it, and I'll wait for the final decision on how you're going to move forward. And then at that particular time, based on what decision you make, I'm sure the council here and our staff will have some questions about that as well. So let's move to the rest of the council to take a look and answer some questions. Landon, Councilor Johnson.
Thank you for coming in today. Appreciate the information. Appreciate that this is being looked at, and I will say I'm a definite fan of the roundabout. My concern is that the traffic coming into town never slows down before it hits the first stoplight. If you slow down to 55 north of that intersection, people are flying by you and slamming on the brakes. So I think for safety purposes, that would be the best there. I appreciate knowing about the County 102. I know that's been a discussion probably for 15 or 20 years at least about whether or not that road's going to remain open with the very little, there's very few houses in the Parkville area on that side anymore. So appreciate you coming in. Do you have a timeline as to how this moves forward, when we'll have some more definite timeframes or dates?
Yeah, I guess I don't have an exact time frame, but I know the county is working to get their leg resolved within the next few months, and then our study is tentatively slated to end in the end of April.
Very much.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Any other preliminary questions for DOT? Okay. Yes, we do. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. So this will go out for the public to have input on this as well before any definite plans are made?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Okay, well, we look forward to another update as you get closer to the design phase of it, and it's exciting that these two intersections need to be addressed, and DOT and staff is recognizing that there's a need to bring safety first. What is your motto? Better to have parts on the road than blood on the road. So I think this is why you can redesign those things. So thank you very much for coming in. Take it easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is Kathy Cody, Friends of the Greenhouse, to discuss the memorandum of understanding and other items.
Okay, thank you. I see we have a group here today. Would you please come forward? And if you would please turn the light to green, and please state your name for the record, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting.
Hi, I am Diane Terrell, and this is Kathy Cody. Kathy is the president of Friends of the Greenhouse, and I am currently treasurer. We both have been involved for 8 years. We are appearing today before the Committee of the Whole to bring our input into the MOU that you have on your agenda today. We have had an MOU with the city for many years. Just a little history, both Kathy and I got involved in 2014. We were recruited to the board. At that time, the Friends of the Greenhouse was in crisis because the full-time horticulturist was retiring. And at that time, what Friends of the Greenhouse understood was that the city was not going to replace him. So being a plant lover that I am, I said, yes, I will be on the board. But at some point in time, I saw that the plants in the greenhouse hadn't been watered for at least 2 weeks. They were extremely dry. It looked to me like, indeed, the city wasn't gonna hire. So a few of us naive new recruits just kept doing the work. And then finally, I think it was Larry or somebody on the council that said, you need to do this right and we need to have an MOU. So we've had an MOU with the city to do the maintenance. However, today we have a quorum of our current FROG board members to drop our obligation of the maintenance of the plants and displays as written under 5C of the 2022 MOU. We are a 501c3 volunteer organization. We want to stop on a positive note. We believe that we extended the life of the facility at least another 8 years. We increased the public use and did many fundraisers. We took care of the plants, bought soil, bought equipment, and we also, did any of you, did you get the accomplishments?
Yes.
All right. We also donated $10,000 towards the new public bathroom. So we are stewards of keeping the greenhouse viable for citizens who appreciate what the greenhouse has to offer the community. And we don't take lightly the fact that there are many citizens in Virginia that have donated their money from their paychecks to continue the greenhouse, and we want to spend that money wisely. I want to get to the reasons why we're giving up our role as maintenance providers. First of all, the volunteers that do the bulk of the plant care are in our late 60s and 70s. Because of that, we have some physical restraints. Some of us live between 50 and 40 miles away. The watering is a daily thing in the summer, sometimes every other day in the winter, depending on how high the heat is and how fast it evaporates. That's a lot of money for a volunteer for 8 years. I don't know if you've ever added it up. And many of us, like I said, have been doing that from 4 to 8 years because we love that place. I know for a fact that there is no other town in Minnesota that has a publicly owned greenhouse. All the other greenhouses that are open, other than St. Paul, and that's Como Park, all other greenhouses are either academy or college owned or school owned. So I am proud of the fact, and Virginia should be, that our forefathers looked at that and thought it was a good thing in our environment to have a greenhouse. The second reason why we are not going to do maintenance anymore is because historically there has been a lack of two-way communication with the city. Let me get my thoughts together. Mr. Mayor, it's a blessing and a curse sometimes that I'm a retired psychiatric nurse. And even though I'm retired, I have a skill. And that skill is looking at people and knowing people. And sometimes it's very difficult when you see people who are functioning in a way that isn't healthy. But I have come to believe that, let me just say, part of that two-way communication, we do not have ongoing support, let's put it that way. There is someone in this room that took it upon themselves to clear out the islands right before Christmas under the guise of the city's ADA or the state's ADA. Now, I not quite understand that. Being a nurse, I know that we have to have ADA compliance, which means the paths need to be clear from debris, from things people can slip on, from branches. And we feel it was fine. Now, this particular person cleared out the middle of the islands. Now, nobody goes in those islands unless it's us to trim. It's not a public area. In our mind, these two ladies here, I'm sorry I didn't introduce them. They are one of our finest plant people that water every Wednesday. And, you know, those islands, in my mind, in our mind, did not need to be cleaned. There were precious plants that were expensive, that were discarded. And the most interesting part of that is that we didn't know. Nothing was said to the board. Nothing, we also have a botanical committee of about 5 or 6 people. Nothing was brought up to us. We just found out one day when we went in. I also believe, Mr. Mayor, and maybe this is the psychiatric part of me, that we have a tribunal going. And that tribunal consists of somebody who is the person that does the bad deed. We have another person who has benign neglect of what's going on, and the third person is somebody who has a lot of decision-making power and is a bit emotionally naive to what's going on. I want to read an email that I received from Britt. Britt and I have, she visited, or when she first started, was involved with our board, and I respect her. However, we wanted to clarify what just happened. So this is what I received. Yes, Councilor Johnson, as well as another council member and others, have discussed their desire to maintain ADA accessibility on all paths and need for cleaning of the plant areas to maintain the plant areas. Please remember, the greenhouse and the plants that are in the greenhouse are city property. Thus, they can be maintained by city staff, including council as needed. Now, if that is true, and I would like to know if it is true or if that's just her words, if it's true, why have we had an MOU that clearly defines that we are to maintain the plants and the displays? And that's not something I want an answer for right now. If anybody here wants to know more specifics of what happened, we as a board would be glad to offer more information. It's on days like today that I am very thankful. I have a faith because inside I would like to cry, and inside I would like to yell. I am extremely angry. Our role is and always has been to continue the city's purpose in use and enjoyment of the facility. And we will remain a 501c that was started back in 1997 by one of our elders who knew, must have known, that we would get to some places in our history where we needed a 501c to not only maintain the greenhouse, but also to advocate for it. And I realize that this is small potatoes for you. I realize that when you discuss business, you discuss hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of work that must be done to the infrastructure. I realize this is small potatoes. But this is important to some of our residents. And we are concerned. We will continue, our role would be to continue to fundraise and donate whatever the city needs. We have a savings account now of $8,000. We would hope that we could soon get to $10,000. Could you give me? So that we could donate that money for the maintenance of the roof. Right now, Friends of the Greenhouse believe that one of the main things that the city needs to look into is the integrity of the building, i.e. the roof, because it's slowly coming down and it's leaking. If the city shows interest in saving the integrity of the display building, we will continue to fundraise and to show our intention of continuing it as a botanical display garden that our forefathers intended. Now, long-term, we as a board cannot, we don't have the capability of doing what we need to do to fundraise. We feel strongly that there should be a community interest group, much the same as the Fountain Restoration Committee, to do a groundswell fundraising. We know that there are monies available. This could be show community support, and we could write, not we as Friends of the Greenhouse, but the Restoration Committee in the community could write for grants. So I think it's doable. But again, I do not see this initiative as something that is Friends of the Greenhouse's responsibility. It is something that we as individuals would join in, however. I'm almost done. In the MOU, there is, you have graciously given us the $500 from, the first $500 from rentals. We no longer see that as necessary. We are a strong 501c, and we would prefer that that $500 go to a build-a-roof type savings account. We would like to continue using the facility for board meetings and 2 to 3 fundraisers throughout the year. We would help orient anyone that the city wants to, or finds to water or care for the plants in the future. But we are giving our 30-day notice. as indicated in our MOU under 10G, number 2. We have kept track of our volunteer hours for several years, and to do it right, you only need a part-time position. To water the plants, sweep the floors daily, you probably only need 8 to 10 hours of somebody's time. So as a result of us making this decision, we request a meeting with Mr. Silber, our director, as soon as possible so that we can rewrite it, our part of our MOU, and I would like you to put us on the agenda for 2 weeks. Yeah, so if anybody can find Mr. Silber, we would like to set up that meeting as soon as possible. Thank you for listening to our changes proposed and letting us as citizens have a voice. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Diane and Kathy. Our Park and Rec Director is in the back room, Mr. Silber. And so unless any other counselor has any questions or comments, maybe we could direct staff to meet with the Friends of the Greenhouse to craft a new MOU and come back in 2 weeks to the next committee meeting for us to take a look at it and come to some kind of resolution. Is that amenable to the Friends of the Greenhouse? Mr. Silber, our Park and Rec Director?
Last Tuesday, you actually directed us to do that.
Okay, very good. Already been done.
Okay,
So, thank you. If you just hang on just one moment, I believe Counselor Beyondich has a question or a comment. Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you. Thank you for the great job. I'm one that, I go into the greenhouse, I use it at Christmas time to make swags and such, but I neglect to say thank you for the greenhouse. And I know when we lost our person in the greenhouse, how important it was for our community to keep that going. So to your whole group, thank you. How many volunteers at this point do you have?
total?
Yes.
It depends on, we use more volunteers for fundraising events, of course. Yeah, our basic core is about 15.
Which quite a few of them are leaving, have quit.
So have you had more in the past that are no longer there?
Yes.
At what point was the highest number of volunteers you had?
Well, I don't know, maybe, we had a lot of fun, let's put it that way. We did have a lot of fun. And although I have heard rumor that some city councilors believed that we were having little parties there, we were not. We were getting our hands dirty, we were sweating, and we had fundraisers 2 to 3 times a year. And that money is part of that $8,000, as well as, if you want to see our bottom line treasury. I would say at the height, it was a few years ago, when we were providing, music during Christmas and fundraisers, and, people liked to come. Pre-COVID, right? Thank you, Kathy, that's true.
Okay, and how many are on your board?
Right now,
Is
six.
that the same thing, or is your board different?
Our board is different, although we are a working board, so a lot of the board also do the work. So our bylaws currently say there can be as many as 9. Right now, we have 5. 6. Now we have 6.
Okay, and it's unfortunate. I have worked on different boards and with different groups. And it's hard, and having my own business, it's really hard when the joy goes out of what you're doing that you have a passion for. And I totally understand that.
Hence why we're quitting.
And I hate
I'm
to
sorry, I interrupted you.
I hate to see that happen. I think our greenhouse is an asset to the city, and it has been run as such. And I would really like to be included if you're having those meetings for your new MOU.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it's going to happen at a committee of the whole meeting or if it is going to be a separate meeting, but I would really like to be a part of that. Because
January 3rd at 4:30.
January 3rd.
The board is getting together again. 4:30, January 3rd at the greenhouse.
And if I may just interrupt for a moment, I think that would be a separate meeting to develop the MOU, and of course, you're welcome to attend whatever the meeting, and then come to an agreement, come up to us and with whatever decision you have and what proposal you have, and when you make that adjustment to your MOU. So you can certainly attend a private, separate meeting with staff in order to accomplish that.
Thank you. And it kind of brings me in, I had received an email that, and this is on a totally different subject, but where our residents weren't aware of such meetings taking place. So they asked if I could, and I'll bring that up later. But like for this, to have the public invited, because I don't think the public realizes a lot of times what we as a council are working on or what we're doing. So I think it's important to have everybody.
Our MOU is a concern for our Friends of the Greenhouse. We have about 150 people who are on our list as friends. And we will send out an
Yes.
email to invite them.
So the
Because of
date-
course, this is a big change.
Right, the date you gave me is for your board meeting. So, or is it's not to go over the MOU?
Yes,
It's a pre-meeting.
For your board.
A pre-meeting for the MOU, and then we have the regular board meeting later.
So we haven't set anything up for the city to look at the MOU? Okay,
Yeah, we've given the go-ahead from the council to have that meeting.
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Beyondich. So, Councilor Freelieb, and then maybe we'll all ask, did you want to weigh in first?
Mayor, I just had one comment. I had heard
Yeah, please do.
that you were giving your notice, and I'm not giving any legal advice, but I would suggest that if you're giving an official notice under the contract, you'd put it in writing. An email or a letter or something would suffice.
we are not giving our notice to quit coordinating with the city, however. I mean, we still have a role to play. We are giving up the maintenance of the plants. We will continue, I guess I'm not being clear.
The MOU expires December 31st, correct?
I don't know if it was
Signed-
January.
I think it was signed in April.
It still expires December 31st. The agreement was only until the end of the year. So your email to us would be your intent to renegotiate the contract.
Okay,
MOU.
all right, thank you.
Very good. Does that satisfy? Thank you.
All right,
That's satisfied. Okay, thank you.
sorry, Brian.
Was a-
Councilor Freelieb.
Diane, Kathy, and your crew, thank you very much for the time and effort that you put into this facility to keep it, the vitality of that facility for this many years, nearly a decade. I've had the privilege of attending a handful of events up there, and they've been exceptional events to be a part of. So I hate to see that we're stumbling along with this MOU, and hopefully we can figure out a way to make it better for you and to continue your involvement with the facility in whatever capacity is going to be beneficial to you and the city as well.
Yeah, we wish for that too.
I invite you and implore you, even though you're looking at changing the MOU to eliminate 10G2, you're still, like it's indicated, you indicated you want to still be involved, and we certainly hope that you do. For all of you that are here and who are not here, you play such a vital role in the greenhouse and the successes that it's had over time. Without you, without your commitment, without all the hard hours of work with everything that you do, now, aside from the maintenance and many of the other things, this greenhouse would not exist. So in a more formal setting, I look forward to seeing the amended MOU come forward to us, and hopefully you'll continue to remain focused and involved in this because you're so vital to this, the integrity and the success and the vitality and the existence of the greenhouse. Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for being here. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the amazing work that has gone into the greenhouse and how beautiful it is for our children, and now I have grandchildren to enjoy, so thank you for that. I do have a couple questions. Part of this has to do with maybe information from the city. First of all, when did the city sunset our horticulturist? Was that in 2000, would that have been in 14? When,
Well, he retired.
and so we never refilled that position. Okay,
Right, and I remember that was a decision by the council not to fill that position.
okay, at that time.
That is
And that
correct.
was a full-time position at that time.
Correct.
And what
I think
is,
Mr. Koneman was the horticulturist.
and what was maybe discussed a little bit was that maybe possibly it would be a part-time person that would, is that kind of what you had indicated?
Our recommendation would be, we haven't really talked to Brian about it, but we've kept track of our hours.
It's
And
just
that
something
includes
I-
the fundraisers. So you don't need more than a part-time position
That was just
to
something
take
I
care of
picked
that.
up on when you were
Yeah.
speaking, so I just wanted to address that, because what I'm hearing is this is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that there seems to be a disconnect with communication between the city and the Friends of the Greenhouse, and possibly that the city maybe isn't taking its role as seriously to preserve or maintain the greenhouse. Was I hearing a little bit of that discussion happen?
Maintenance is basically in the roof.
The roof. And you've come
That does have a
before,
limited, very limited life. Maintenance of the plants isn't that tough. You know, it's just ongoing.
so, and I was talking structure, not the plants. So that,
There's a big problem.
because I think you've come before and we've had issues with the roof, and then we had an insurance claim. So I want to address how the communication can be better and how the city can facilitate the needs, recognizing that whether it be in our budgetary process or what have you. So that's one thing that I wanted to ask. And then the other thing,
Can I address that a little bit more?
sure,
And then I have
please.
something too.
You know, Brian has been busy with the MEC. We understood that. And however, we haven't seen him. I don't know what happened, okay? I don't. All I know is from my observance. And that is that, unfortunately, we allowed a city councilor to be part of our board, and it hasn't worked. And from my viewpoint only, Brian was okay with that, because that, you know, gave him more time to stay where he's at. However, as a Friends of the Greenhouse, we really need Brian. He's the director of the Parks and
partnership
Rec.
with the city.
We need a partnership, exactly. And historically, it feels like we do our thing, the city does their thing, never the two meet hardly. So at this point in time, we don't know if the roof, I mean, is that something you want to see fixed?
Well, and this is where I'm going, if I may continue, is I'm trying to understand the hierarchy here, who reports to whom, when you have the meetings, who, does Park and Rec make part of those decisions? Do the recommendations come from the Frog Board to the Park and Rec Department? Because you fall under the Park and Rec Department, isn't that correct? Do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, under the MOU, we were to, I don't know where it's written, because I don't have it in front of me, but we were to Frog was.
One person.
Frog was to name someone to be the spokesperson for us. And
To the Park and
somehow,
Rec Department or to the city?
Park and Rec.
That's what I thought, it's updated in there, okay. So has that been a continuous thing? So I'm trying to understand where the communication broke down.
so are we.
Yep, and so can that be answered, then do you have a liaison to the Park and Rec Board?
Yes, we have a board member
Okay, and so,
who is relatively new, less than a year.
okay, so then when Frog has their meetings and you discuss, things that come up or fundraising ideas or what have you, then it goes to the Park and Rec Board for approval, or further discussion and approval?
No,
No?
no, we're a 501c, and we don't need Parks and Rec's approval for some of the things we do.
It's just
But
informational.
it's
More
informational.
Okay, so that helps me tremendously. And then, I guess I have a question as to why the city, this would be for our attorney, why the city would expect a nonprofit board to do any maintenance at all. Friends of Public Safety, that's more of a fundraising mechanism. They don't shovel the sidewalks in front of the fire hall. I have a concern that was actually even in there when the other nonprofit entities that support whatever have you don't function in that. They function in more of a fiscal role. So I just am curious as to how that kind of sounds like a union thing to me, that they're actually watering, cutting plants, maintaining, they're volunteers. And that's the expectation that this MOU lays out and has laid out for several years since the MOU has been written. So I have a concern about that.
So if I may, I do have the memorandum of understanding before me. And other items, under item 2 terms, and there are other things in there, it says, Frog shall be entitled to schedule the use of specific areas of the greenhouse as designated by the Park and Rec Director for a period of time between January 1 through December 31st. Times of use will be approved by the Park and Rec Director. These time periods should include the time necessary for setup and cleanup. So they report directly to the Park and Rec Director. Any suggestions, comments with respect to maintenance requests or any other requests, other than watering the plants, because that's part of the other part of their responsibilities, probably the major part of their responsibility, is to articulate those concerns and requests through the Park and Rec Director. And they'll go to the Park and Rec Commission, then it comes to us. So-
Okay, so thank you for helping me with the
Just so you-
sequence.
yeah.
I appreciate it. That's
Okay,
what I
sure.
needed to understand.
Please continue.
Then I guess the follow-up on that is, I just don't understand, I don't, even when it came to the Fountain Committee, that was a fiscal, financial fundraising arm. So I'm having a hard time understanding why I understand maybe it was a budgetary thing, the horticulturist was never renewed, but if that's something that's needed, as a city needs to maintain a city-owned, public-owned building, and that burden is falling on an MOU of volunteers with no necessarily financial benefit for that 501c3, if they're acting as their own entity, I don't understand why that's been allowed to go on.
Well, I think the memorandum of understanding doesn't give any authority here or responsibility of the Friends of the Greenhouse to maintain the facility itself, only to maintain and watering the plants, as it says under Section 5C, use of the facility, any watering, maintenance, and care of plants.
And I get,
Right,
I understand that, I've read it.
Okay, so, all right,
But, so
thank
like
you.
Friends of Public Safety, they don't go in and have a meeting and then clean the fire hall. Like, that's not, do you understand what I'm trying to get at here?
Maybe,
He only stepped up to the plate because of a need. We agree with you.
Lack of care.
We agree with you
And I think
wholeheartedly.
if I could circle back around, that was my initial thing, neglect is a strong word, and I'm not trying to use the word neglect, but if the city hasn't taken it as serious as it needed to, I think that's coming full circle now. And if you could help just explain that to me, I feel like it's a conflict of interest with a union issue with working inside of a city-owned building.
I'm going to ask Brian for a little clarification in a moment, but the city has, in the past, not neglected or not.
I didn't mean that, I'm
No,
sorry.
no,
That's
no,
a
I mean,
strong word.
I think the word can be used in some areas, I think. We spent at least $275,000, if not more, to try to shore up the physical integrity of the greenhouse to keep it viable.
It was $1 million, Mayor.
Sorry?
$1 million.
Over $1 million, okay, sorry, over $1 million. And that's city money, grant money, all those kind of things too. So we have made a commitment to ensure the integrity of that. Now, there are other structural issues that we have with respect to that, but I'm going to ask Brian, we have a memorandum of understanding with the Griesler, and it looks like it limits what they do there. And so is there any other comments or clarifications you can make in respect to the questions from Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make just a few very brief comments. Viewing this, because I wasn't here when this contract was initially negotiated, and reviewing the memorandum of understanding. The memorandum of understanding, as I view it, is a document that's built entirely around 5C, around the care and maintenance of the plants. Without 5C, when I read the contract, and this is just from a legal perspective, when I read the contract, the balance of the agreement talks about how the responsibility will be distributed between the parties, and the city maintains the obligation to care for the physical aspect of the greenhouse, the roof, the walls, the main facilities. The maintenance portion that the Friends of the Greenhouse had agreed to take up was as to the maintenance of the plants, the watering, the care, those things that the city lacked expertise in, I would assume, after horticulturists left. And then the balance where there's cleanup type issues. The way that I read it, those cleanup type issues are just the areas where they're working within the greenhouse. The cleanup issues don't extend necessarily to shoveling the snow and doing those sorts of things. And so as I view this memorandum, it appears to me, at least on the first reading, to be built around 5C. So 5C was the main thrust, the main purpose of this agreement, and all the other terms and conditions are filled in around that one main provision in order to create a relationship that would be hopefully workable between the parties.
So thank you for that. And then that, in my opinion, that aspect would have been according to conditions in 2014. Okay, so now we have a change in conditions, and we have a group coming and saying, you know, this is a little bit above and beyond. We're volunteers, we're driving many, times in age, we're all getting older. No one's getting younger. So I get that. So I'm wondering if we just I know you're going to meet and rethink this MOU, but I feel that it does need to be revisited, and I feel that the city needs to, maybe we need to have this part of our, quarterly discussions about the greenhouse, and, if, again, we kind of put the ITMEC under scrutiny in terms of revenue generation and da-da-da-da-da, maybe we look at this as, I wouldn't say necessarily revenue-driven, but I mean, what does it cost to maintain, what is the overall cost for our city? I think that to me would be helpful information, and then opening up the lines of communication. So we do have a monthly report, after you guys have a meeting. We get planning and zoning commission meeting minutes every month. We get park and rec meeting minutes every month. We also get public utility committee meetings or commission meetings every month. I don't know that I've gotten Friends of the Greenhouse Committee minutes. I don't know if I have or not, actually. So just maybe opening up that line of communication, this was what was discussed, these are our minutes, sending that to our city clerk and having that, sent around. And then if there's any way that the city can help be a better partner, I think that communication to me, would make sense. And I don't know anything about plants, I'll be the first one to tell you. But I would like to have a conversation about what it takes to maintain that. Is there a plant cutting maintenance schedule like we do for Public Works. You've got a vehicle, you maintain all of our city vehicles. Do we need to maintain trimming plants or making sure it's ADA compliant if there's overgrowth or what have you? But just to work a little bit better in partnership with the city. And then in terms of, the condition of the building, it'd be nice to know a report, here's the condition of the building. I know, Brian, I think we used to get that when we had some wind or storm damage. We had talked about that quite a bit during the time that it has happened. But I think since then, we really haven't had a lot of information coming forward. I think that's just my perspective, and I'd like to see that open line of communication. And then, I think the council can be better prepped to help out or to assist in things or issues that you guys can foresee coming in the future, and also for budgetary planning for the following fiscal year. So I'm sorry I was so long-winded, but I thank you, Mayor, for the time.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Again, the goal and objective is for the Friends of the Good to maintain the plants. And they're under the guise and the supervision, and I know they do other things, whatever you're doing, but they report directly to the Park and Rec Director, which is Brian Silber, and then they discuss it at the Park and Rec Commission meeting. They make a decision, and particularly the physical aspects of what needs to be done. The Friends of the Greenhouse are in there all the time. They see the physical structural maintenance issues that they observe. They pass that on to our Park and Rec Director, which they report to. They discuss it at the Park and Rec Commission meeting, and I think any report that comes from that should come through that, not through the Friends of the Greenhouse, because they can issue a report, and then it comes. You're welcome to come anytime, but I think having this meeting discussing not only the MOU, but the structure and the reporting aspects of it as well, and once that gets accomplished, they can come back to us, in the next 2 weeks, and we can hopefully have some clarity on the MOU itself. Councilor Beyondich.
And thank you, Councilor Paulson. You brought up some good points, and I do think lack of communication. I think we need open communication and having the public be aware of what, not that it's on you, but for the building itself, for concerned citizens, they took care of the fountain in the park. And I think it's just getting the word out and having the public be aware of what is happening and what the needs are in our city. And that greenhouse, I have to believe, would be important to a lot of people.
Kathy, would you
Thank you.
please come up and turn the green light on?
We intend to follow up on that.
Yes, and I've often said it, I'm remiss at getting to your meetings, but I look forward to hearing all sides of this MOU and how it affects everybody involved. And I really think, I hear from a lot of people who are hesitant to come before the council, but I get a lot of emails and text messages from people. So I think the public would welcome knowing what the needs are and what the changes and what has to happen. So I will be happy to come to that meeting
Okay?
and share whatever it is.
Well, we need to increase awareness of the greenhouse, no doubt. A lot of
Right.
people
And
don't even know it's a public greenhouse.
And I'm
that they can come
guilty
in.
of it. I am just as guilty as anybody that I don't have time to stop in there, but I do know the importance of it. And when I was there, while I was making some of the greenery for the gazebo, it's such a nice space to come into, especially during our winters, that if people knew more about it or wanted to be more involved and have a voice of what is happening. So I'm glad you came forward, and I look forward to seeing, I know in all these years, things have changed. So I will be at that meeting. And I don't know if you send out meeting notices,
Usually via text.
I can be put on that text list.
It's always the first Tuesday of the month at 5 currently. I wanted to get back to something you said, Counselor Paulson, about communication. You know, there are city people that go through the greenhouse that we aren't privy to know what they're observing. One is whoever comes and looks at the boilers. I don't know what city position does that. Kurt Kinnunen in the past, I believe he's retired, but he was like a buildings. Oh, well, whatever. He was a building,
Rod Sepulveda.
whatever. He
Rod
would come
Sepulveda.
in every, once a week, every 2 weeks. So I mean, there were city people, as well as, you know, Brian, of course. But there have been city people that have observed. We've kind of said, okay, that's not our responsibility, but we know. So there has been city observing, but I don't know what they do with that information. I don't know where they bring that information to.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Thank you, Kathy. Did you want to continue with us a little bit more information there? We're going to have this meeting, bring it back to the council with some resolution, not on the MOU or any other issues you might have. Brian Silber is, of course, the Park Rec Director, and that Greenhouse falls under his purview. So, Councilor Beyondich?
And I'm not sure, Britt, where that would be posted for the public when we have that meeting about the MOU, the
We have
city.
strict laws that how we have to post our meetings for open meeting law. So they would be posted just like we do all of our other meetings.
Okay, but it would be, I mean, the public would be able to see when the meeting is.
There's a quorum of the council, yes. We don't get notices of frog meetings.
No, I'm not talking, I'm talking about when we go
Yeah,
through
so when we
this
set a
with the
council meeting,
city.
yes. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Past, we have.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll have the meeting with Park and Rec. We've already voted to do so. And then you'll come to some kind of resolution and come back to us. And then we'll make sure that that notice is given to the general public that we're going to be discussing this moving forward. So do you have something else, Diane?
Just to, you know, forgive us because I don't know city structure. But through the years, we've been advised to post out here downstairs when our meetings are. And I know that was done years ago, but since then we've changed the day of our meetings. So I apologize for that too.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kathy, Diane, all the members here. Thank you very much for coming in. Did you have something else, Kathy, before we move on to the next item on the agenda?
Oh, that's it.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is review and discuss proposed rate increase for the 2023 ambulance billing rates. Chief Frederickson had to leave. There is an active fire, so he had to take off, but he wanted me to tell the council that this is just due to inflationary costs, and this is recommended by Buck McAlpin, the ambulance lobbyist.
So the rate increase is based on some recommendations from the chief and Bud McAlpin, and we can do this legally. Councilor Johnson?
That was going to be my question. We're not raising the rates above the,
The Medicare rate stays the same.
thank you.
This is just the regular runs. We'll go from 1,700 to 1,850, 1,600 for non-emergent to 1,700,
The private pay and the insurance pays?
yeah, for private pays and insurance pays.
Very good, thank you.
I'll move the rate structure.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the proposed increased rate structure for the 2023 ambulance billing rates. Is there support?
I'll support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Freely for discussion, further discussion. Councilor Freely.
Do you recall the last time this happened, that there was some people in surrounding communities that were a little taken by surprise by that? Have we informed them of the intent to do this year, or?
This
is
doesn't
it-
affect the communities. That's the intercept rate that they were worried about.
Oh.
And the intercept rate has to be below this Medicare threshold, so we have to keep that at 400. We can't change that one quite yet.
This is a separate thing?
This is just those that have insurance or private pay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Freely. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
The next item on agenda, item number 4, is approval to accept funds and enter into an agreement from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for the 2023-2025 street improvement project, specifically for 6th Avenue North and 17th Street South by
So
Supervisor.
moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Number 5 is approve the federal participation in construction agreement with the state of Minnesota.
Okay, do this every year.
We do this every year.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Counselor Freelieb. Further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 6 is review and approve the proposed contract with Colosimo Patchen and Carney Ltd. as the criminal prosecutors for the city of Virginia. Please note there is no change from the previous contract.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Counselor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. No change in the rate,
No
is
change.
that correct? No change at all? And then do we have, and I go through, it's in the list of bills, bill run every month, but is there an annual, Sherry, that you could email what we've paid out to Colosimo Patchen for criminal? If you don't mind, thank you.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 7 is a request from the Public Works Department for the purchase of a 2024 Vector truck from McQueen Equipment.
Hey, thank you. We have our Public Works Director, Jim Rosvit, here in the audience. Jim, would you please come forward? We did read your email, and this was an amended addition to today's meeting. And I think we all got the chance to read the email of urgency from the representative from McQueen Equipment with respect to the trade-in that's given. So could you give us a little rundown and update on the request for this and where this money may come from, and that it's to be purchased but delivered in 2024? Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
Okay, please continue.
We're looking at purchasing a new vac jetter truck. Our unit we have now is a 2002. And unfortunately, it's a very expensive piece of equipment. And it's a very important piece of equipment. We utilize it all the time, so. But what we're looking at is updating that. I don't like the trade-in offer that they're offering us. I feel we can make more putting it on the government bid to get the trade-in on it. The thing we're running into is if we don't order now, we won't have a chassis available till 2026. Also, the cost difference after the first of the year goes up another 7%, so that's another $42,000 on top of that. So I thought if we can order it now and we would take delivery in 2024, it wouldn't be expected until then, so.
One question for you on the trade-in. Is the quote that from McQueen Equipment for this, if we did not trade it in, would that quote stay the same?
That quote was $585. It would be $535. They would go to $50,000 for a trade-in on that. I don't feel that's a fair trade-in. Neither does my shop foreman or.
Right, so if we were to take that off the table, it's not part of the trade-in. The quote from McQueen Equipment, was that quote included the trade? And then if we pulled that trade out, would you just take off the trade value and that cost would not change?
That cost would still be $585. We didn't incorporate that
Right.
trade into that original price.
Right, so-
I did get a second quote from them. I didn't submit that to you for that reason.
Right, very good. Thank you for that clarification, Jim. Let's go around the room. We'll go right to left this time. First, Counselor Beyondich, and then we'll move around the other side. Counselor Beyondich.
So this would be ordered and delivery would be 2023,
Delivery would be 2024.
24. Is this in a budget or a capital outlay of anything? How old is the truck we have now?
2002.
So when is this equipment put on for replacement as far as capital outlay?
It's on the capital outlet, but you know, it takes money.
Sure.
We can put it on there, but then it becomes a wish list. Unfortunately, some of these things have been pushed off because it just wasn't the money to buy them. This is the Vector. It's going to be under the sewer, but the sewer has been tapped quite a bit, and we need to probably look at rates. I'm going to send in to Paul Steinman and our financial counselor about, they did our sewer rates before with that wastewater. We have an obligation to meet the PFA loan with our rates, while with equipment as old as it is, this is gonna be part of the 223 equipment bond. And then the sewer will have to pay back their portion.
Please continue.
Thank you. So we have the money coming from the sewer. Is all the money, when you say it's tapped out, was that used for other sewer projects?
You did get a monthly budget report last week. Yeah, you can review that. If you need a detail, I can give you that.
Yeah, we're right in the end of that phosphorus upgrade that we had to do.
Was that with the treatment plant?
Yes, yes,
That
that
was
comes out of
not-
the sewer fund.
So that was not something that was budgeted for necessarily either, was that?
We had about a year to budget, so we didn't have a long time to budget, but it was not a planned upgrade. It was something that came with our permit from the MPCA. It was a requirement, unfunded mandate, like Charlie always mentions.
So it kind of concerns me when we have these large pieces of equipment and they're put on, but then they're taken off, because then I feel like we're, and not, you're fine, but I feel like we're backed into a corner because all of a sudden now we have no money. And then it goes on to the bond. So
Previous councils had really tough decisions to make because it does take money, and they just didn't have the funds at the time to make those purchases. So they put it off, putting it onto this council to make those decisions.
which will probably snowball because we're going to run into the same problem. And I get concerned because are we going to catch up? Are we ever going to catch up? Are we going to recap or recapture that money somehow? So those are, I mean, we need it, there's no doubt about it, but it does concern me when we have capital outlay plans and this equipment is from that long ago, and we've never addressed what, and I know emergencies happen, I know things happen, but that's just one of my concerns, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that one of the reasons and why we had an equipment bond over the 10-year period, because it's palatable for us to pay a certain amount over time as opposed to one big chunk of money. You know, I know that there's a concern amongst some of the elected body about an equipment bond. If we don't have the money, we shouldn't buy it. But this is when you have a vehicle or equipment replacement schedule that you don't follow, and it hasn't followed for 20 years. We're trying to play catch up. We're making some incremental steps in doing so, but in order to get back to a vehicle equipment or equipment schedule, it takes a little time to catch up, and we're looking at another decade before we're going to catch up. Where this equipment that we're on equipment bonds can be budgeted for in the future. So we do those kind of things, and so that's unfortunately just like with the brand new ladder truck for the fire department. That's going to be $500,000 as well. Well, we don't have that kind of chunk of money. We have a budget. And the budget doesn't accomplish that, because when you have 82% of your budget for labor costs, which is normal for public employees and public works, you only have 18% of your budget to operate. Well, when you're placing the equipment, there's only two things you can do when you reduce your budget. You reduce employees, and then you reduce the cost of equipment. So with reducing the employees, you lose services. So we, over the course historically, have sacrificed equipment in lieu of. And that's put us in a position, and as Britta aptly put, that it's put us in a position to try to catch up, and that's what we're doing right now. You got to have it. If it goes down, we're in trouble. Can't get a chassis till 2026. we're trying to be proactive here. So we're going to call upon our staff to take a look at what's the most prudent way in which to accomplish this goal of the purchase. And that would be through the equipment bond or some other means with some partial payment from the sewer fund, et cetera. Those are my thoughts. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So one of the questions I had got answered. So in theory, Sherry, we're going to be adding this, if it gets approved, into our capital equipment bond.
Yes, it's in the capital outlay, and it'll be part of the equipment bond.
Okay. And then, Jim, do we have to put any money down?
No.
We don't have to do any down payment. Okay, so it would be, once the equipment bond was funded, then upon delivery would be paid in full from the bond.
Correct.
And then Baker Tilly will come back at some point, Sherry, and give us recommendations of increased sewer fees if need be.
Correct.
Based on, would it be based on just certain pieces of equipment that will be, or projects for sewer
They're gonna look at the
related?
whole operation, because
Okay,
we have
so-
to include the PFA in there.
So they'll assess that, basically like that department, and make a recommendation to the council from
Yes.
going forward. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We're discussing it now. The request is to order it for delivery in 2024. We have a capital outlay, potentially for equipment bond. We got Baker Tilly coming back to give us an example on what we need to do and how do we accomplish that, and whether rates need to be increased, so we're looking toward that. So if there's any other questions or concerns or comments, I think you're looking for a motion to move forward with this purchase, at least move it to the city council for final approval.
I'll move to approve.
Councilor Paulson moves to approve. Is there support? A support by Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Do you want to take a quick break, or?
That'd be great.
Okay, let's do that, please. No?
No, we can keep going.
Huh? You want to keep rolling? Does
Rolling.
anybody need to take a break? I do, but I think I can hold it in abeyance until we finish moving forward. Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. We'll continue to move forward.
Item number 8 is discuss the tennis report.
All right,
Tennis
please.
court request for proposal for resurfacing. We bid this twice. We put it out twice publicly, and we received no responses. So I did actually email a contractor that we know of and said, hey, you didn't reply to this. Would you be interested to give me a quote based on these parameters? And I haven't heard back yet.
Well, let's wait to hear back.
Yeah, realizing it is a holiday week. This is kind of a crazy week. I did email him 2 weeks ago. I'll try again later this week and see if I can get a hold of him.
Would you please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. The next item, number 9, is approve the agreement with Essentia Health to use the Iron Trail Motors Event Center as an alternate site for emergency evacuation. This, again, is an annual thing, and realize on the letter, they have the wrong location name. They have the Miners Memorial Building on there still.
Move to approve by Councilor Johnson.
With the changes needed.
Yeah, with the changes. And is there support? Support by Councilor Freely. Further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 10 is approve the temporary use license agreement with Rockstep Virginia LLC, and this is for John Swenson's office at the mall. There is no fee.
Yeah, it's a good deal.
Move to approve for discussion.
Moved by Councilor Johnson for approval for discussion. Is there support? Support by Councilor Beyondich. Further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. Mr. Lindsay, would you just make sure that the whole part about the fees and everything is completely lined out? And I just want to make sure we're not getting into anything. I mean, I know they're not charging us, but I'd prefer it say, and we're not charging you, instead of just a bunch of stuff blocked out. That's pages 54, 3.4.
Assuming we move this to the council meeting, I'll have an opinion to Ms. Sibenes before that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Need to vote? Thank you. All right, thank you.
Item number 11 is review the contract for the independent contractor agreement for public access television.
And we'll turn this over to our city attorney, Brian, Lindsay, Brian has made some corrections to see before you, mostly language questions and some other issues. So Brian, could you kind of give us a little synopsis?
Thank you, Mayor. I did review the entire contract as a general matter. Nothing there to be really concerned about. I did adjust some wording, just there was one word in particular, but some words used that had a connotation that I think we want to remove from the contract. And then also, I changed some language a little bit about the independent contractor being able to engage agents. As an independent contractor, that is within his prerogative, and I just wanted to clarify that a little bit within the contract. Otherwise, by and large, formatting changes just to try and clean it up and make it a little more user-friendly.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Counselor Paulson?
Thank you. First page, second to the last paragraph, when it talks about the independent contractor shall provide his own equipment beyond blah, 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 it includes software, computers, internet, also shall include any internet-based control systems to operate public access TV content delivery networks for intent on demand streaming and other developmental web-based services for an internet presence. My comment that I had made, I think, when I wanted to have this reviewed a little further, was regarding the city's YouTube channel specifically, and that what I'm finding is that our live stream meetings are, I don't know if they're live streamed on our YouTube or they're archived, but then they get archived on Masabi TV, and they're not being archived on the city's YouTube. From when I go online, and I've had people, that's part of why I wanted to address that, because I want to make sure that the city owns its own content. So can that be addressed I mean, it doesn't seem that it's specifically addressed, but I guess what I'm looking for is he's welcome to mirror that content and put it on Masabi TV, but I want the city's owned content to be on the city's own YouTube channel.
Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. And perhaps the way that we could address this is we could include a standard paragraph, an additional paragraph that just indicates that and make sure that it's, because it is the case that this contract is subject to the Minnesota Data Practices Act, and just put a couple lines or put a short paragraph in there reminding our independent contractor that he's subject to the Minnesota Data Practices Act, which means that anything that's produced into a tangible, reproducible form is considered data. And if it's produced or created pursuant to a city contract, then the city has an obligation. And he, as an independent contractor, because it's a contract with a municipal body, would have an equal obligation to maintain that. So it would be within his best interest to land it with the city so that we have control of it and
So
can produce it.
short-winded, we'll have it on the city will have its city-streamed programming on our YouTube channel, and he is welcome to do with that information or content on his own channel, but will provide that archive capability on our own YouTube channel.
Correct, and I'll add that language in for next
Thank
Tuesday.
you. Then I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Johnson?
Mayor. And our YouTube channel does have 247 videos, so they are there, they do populate. I think it might just be platforms. I've gone on my phone and only get a half dozen as opposed to on a computer. But you have to go over to the link archive, so you got to go over a little bit. So
I've done
it
it
is.
several
Yeah,
times.
but it is there.
Counselor
It's-
Johnson.
Yeah, it is there. I mean, I'm looking at it right
It
now.
used to be there right off the bat, and it has changed.
And I think that's a YouTube thing. I think that has nothing to do with how it gets populated. YouTube
What?
changes their,
Okay.
yeah, YouTube changes their, just like Facebook and everybody else, they change at will. But it is there, and unfortunately for us, the best way to find things is to go to our Facebook page and click on the link and go back. That's the easiest way to do it. So
Okay.
I appreciate your frustration, because I find that frustration when I'm on my phone as well.
It's just comments that I've received